The leaked space station floated above a dead, gray planet. The stars outside the window looked cold and far away. Inside, the station was quiet, except for the soft hum of the engines. Jack was sitting in the control room, half asleep in his chair. When the alarm started, a sharp, loud sound filled the room. Red lights began to flash on the walls. "Warning," a flat voice said from the speaker. "Fuel leak detected. Level 2 emergency. Fuel leak detected." Jack sat up straight, his heart beating faster. A fuel leak was bad, very bad. Without fuel, the station would lose power. Without power, he would freeze to death in space. He grabbed his toolkit from the corner, put on his helmet, and walked to the door. The hallway outside was dark. Some of the lights were flickering. He took a deep breath and stepped into the long, empty corridor. The sound of the alarm echoed through the station. It felt louder here. Jack followed the blinking lights on the floor. They showed the way to the fuel room. As he walked, he heard something strange. Not just the alarm. Not just his boots on the metal floor. He heard a dripping sound. Drip, drip, hiss, and something else too. A strange hissing noise, almost like breathing. He stopped and listened. The air felt colder here. He tightened his grip on the toolkit and kept moving. When he reached the fuel room door, he saw that it was already open. That was impossible. It was always locked, always sealed. Jack frowned. "Hello?" he called, his voice shaking a little. "No." Answer. He slowly stepped inside. The fuel room was big and round, filled with silver pipes and tall tanks. In the middle of the room, fuel was dripping from a broken pipe, forming a shiny puddle on the floor. But Jack's eyes were not on the pipe. They were on the figure crouched next to it. Someone, or something, was there. A woman. But not a woman. She was crouched on the floor, her back to him. Her skin seemed to glow faintly, like moonlight. Her long hair fell like black water down her back. And her hands were pressed to the pipe, and they glowed too. Jack realized she was drinking the fuel. Her head tilted back slightly, and he saw her lips shine with the liquid. Her fingers moved over the metal like they belonged there, like she was part of it. Jack froze. His mouth went dry. What are you?" he whispered. The figure stopped. The hissing sound stopped too. Slowly, she turned her head and looked at him over her shoulder. Her eyes were like stars, deep, endless, bright. Jack took a step back. He couldn't look away. She stood up slowly, gracefully, as if gravity didn't matter to her. She was taller than he expected. Her suit, if it was a suit, clung to her like a second skin. It shimmered like oil on water. She didn't say anything. She just watched him. Her eyes narrowed slightly, as if she was studying him. Jack swallowed hard. You can't be here. This is my station. You can't drink the fuel. It's dangerous." She tilted her head, almost curious. Her lips curved into the smallest of smiles. "Dangerous?" She finally spoke. Her voice was soft, but it echoed in the room. "Not for me." Jack took another step back. His mind raced. She could talk. She understood him. She was real. But how? There were no life forms on the dead planet below. No ships in the area. No one but him. "You," he began, but stopped. What could he say? What could he even ask? She turned fully now, facing him. The glow around her seemed to grow brighter, filling the room with a strange light. Jack could feel the heat of it on his face. "You saw nothing," she said. Her words were sharp this time, not soft anymore. Her eyes narrowed. She raised one glowing hand, and Jack felt his knees weaken. Something in his brain screamed at him to run, but his legs wouldn't move. He stammered, trying to speak. I heard the alarm. The leak. I came to fix. You saw nothing, she said again. Louder. Her voice was like metal scraping against glass now. Jack dropped his toolkit. It clattered to the floor, breaking the silence. The alien woman slowly lowered her hand, but she didn't take her eyes off him. Jack glanced at the fuel tank. The puddle on the floor was much bigger now. The gauge on the wall showed the fuel. Level dropping fast. Too fast. He realized in horror. She was draining everything. Jack's single quotes, breathing quickened. If the fuel ran out, the station would die. He would die. But if he tried to stop her, would she kill him? They stared at each other across the room, both waiting for the other to make a move. Jack's mind was full of questions, but his mouth stayed shut. He didn't even blink. The alarm kept screaming. The lights kept flashing. But in that moment, it felt like the whole world had stopped. In the silence between them, Jack understood one thing. This was not just a leak. This was something much bigger. Something he was not supposed to see. And it had already begun. The alien woman. Jack didn't move. He couldn't. The alien woman stood there, glowing faintly, her starry eyes fixed on him. She looked calm, but something about her, the way the air around her shimmered, the way her fingers curled and uncurled like claws, made Jack feel very small, very weak. He finally forced himself to speak. Who are you? His voice cracked, barely a whisper. The woman tilted her head, like she didn't understand the question. Or maybe she just didn't care. Instead of answering, she turned back to the fuel pipe. She crouched down again and pressed her lips to the metal. Jack watched in disbelief as the fuel inside the pipe rushed toward her, faster now. The gauge on the wall spun down like a dying clock. Stop, Jack yelled, stepping forward. You're going to kill us both. We need that fuel to survive. She didn't even glance at him. Desperate. Jack lunged forward and grabbed her shoulder. What happened next? He would never forget. In the blink of an eye, she stood and spun around, grabbing his wrist. Her touch burned hot and cold at the same time, and she shoved him backward with such force. He flew across the room and crashed into the wall. Jack gasped, pain shooting through his back. She walked toward him slowly now, her feet making no sound on the metal floor. The glow around her seemed to grow brighter with each step. Jack tried to stand, but his legs shook under him. When she was only a few feet away, she crouched down so her face was level with his. You saw nothing, she said again, her voice low but dangerous. I saw everything, Jack muttered, staring into her star eyes. For the first time, her expression changed. Something flickered across her face. Surprise? Curiosity? She reached out and pressed one glowing finger to his chest. Jack felt his heartbeat speed up under her touch. You're not like the others, she whispered. Jack frowned. What others? The leaked space station floated above a dead, gray planet. The stars outside the window looked cold and far away. Inside, the station was quiet, except for the soft hum of the engines. Jack was sitting in the control room, half asleep in his chair when the alarm started. A sharp, loud sound filled the room. Red lights began to flash on the walls. Warning, a flat voice said from the speaker. Fuel leak detected. Level 2 emergency. Fuel leak detected. Jack sat up straight, his heart beating faster. A fuel leak was bad, very bad. Without fuel, the station would lose power. Without power, he would freeze to death in space. He grabbed his toolkit from the corner, put on his helmet, and walked to the door. The hallway outside was dark. Some of the lights were flickering. He took a deep breath and stepped into the long, empty corridor. The sound of the alarm echoed through the station. It felt louder here. Jack followed the blinking lights on the floor. They showed the way to the fuel room. As he walked, he heard something strange. Not just the alarm. Not just his boots on the metal floor. He heard a dripping sound, drip, hiss, and something else too. A strange hissing noise, almost like breathing. He stopped and listened. The air felt colder here. He tightened his grip on the toolkit and kept moving. When he reached the fuel room door, he saw that it was already open. That was impossible. It was always locked, always sealed. Jack frowned. "Hello?" he called, his voice shaking a little. No answer. He slowly stepped inside. The fuel room was big and round, filled with silver pipes and tall tanks. In the middle of the room, fuel was dripping from a broken pipe, forming a shiny puddle on the floor. But Jack's eyes were not on the pipe. They were on the figure crouched next to it. Someone, or something. Was there? A woman. But not a woman. She was crouched on the floor, her back to him. Her skin seemed to glow faintly, like moonlight. Her long hair fell like black water down her back. And her hands were pressed to the pipe, and they glowed too. Jack realized she was drinking the fuel. Her head tilted back slightly, and he saw her lips shine with the liquid. Her fingers moved over the metal like they belonged there, like she was part of it. Jack froze. His mouth went dry. What are you?" he whispered. The figure stopped. The hissing sound stopped too. Slowly she turned her head and looked at him over her shoulder. Her eyes were like stars, deep, endless, bright. Jack took a step back. He couldn't look away. She stood up slowly, gracefully, as if gravity didn't matter to her. She was taller than he expected. Her suit, if it was a suit, clung to her like a second skin. It shimmered like oil on water. She didn't say anything. She just watched him. Her eyes narrowed slightly, as if she was studying him. Jack swallowed hard. You can't be here. This is my station. You can't drink the fuel. It's dangerous." She tilted her head, almost curious. Her lips curved into the smallest of smiles. "Dangerous?" She finally spoke. Her voice was soft, but it echoed in the room. "Not for me." Jack took another step back. His mind raced. She could talk. She understood him. She was real. But how? There were no life forms on the dead planet below. No ships in the area. No one but him. You. He began, but stopped. What could he say? What could he even ask? She turned fully now, facing him. The glow around her seemed to grow brighter, filling the room with a strange light. Jack could feel the heat of it on his face. "You saw nothing," she said. Her words were sharp this time, not soft anymore. Her eyes narrowed. She raised one glowing hand, and Jack felt his knees weaken. Something in his brain screamed at him to run, but his legs wouldn't move. He stammered, trying to speak. I heard the alarm. The leak. I came to fix." "You saw nothing," she said again, louder. Her voice was like metal scraping against glass now. Jack dropped his toolkit. It clattered to the floor, breaking the silence. The alien. Woman slowly lowered her hand, but she didn't take her eyes off him. Jack glanced at the fuel tank. The puddle on the floor was much bigger now. The gauge on the wall showed the fuel level dropping fast. Too fast. He realized in horror. She was draining everything. Jack's single quotes breathing quickened. If the fuel ran out, the station would die. He would die. But if he tried to stop her, would she kill him? They stared at each other across the room, both waiting for the other to make a move. Jack's mind was full of questions, but his mouth stayed shut. He didn't even blink. The alarm kept screaming. The lights kept flashing. But in that moment, it felt like the whole world had stopped. In the silence between them, Jack understood one thing. This was not just a leak. This was something much bigger. Something he was not supposed to see, Dot, and it had already begun. Asterisk the alien woman. Jack didn't move. He couldn't. The alien woman stood there, glowing faintly, her starry eyes fixed on him. She looked calm, but something about her, the way the air around her shimmered, the way her fingers curled and uncurled like claws, made Jack feel very small, very weak. He finally forced himself to speak. Who are you? His voice cracked, barely a whisper. The woman tilted her head, like she didn't understand the question. Or maybe she just didn't care. Instead of answering, she turned back to the fuel pipe. She crouched down again and pressed her lips to the metal. Jack watched in disbelief as the fuel inside the pipe rushed toward her, faster now. The gauge on the wall spun down like a dying clock. "Stop!" Jack yelled, stepping forward. "You're going to kill us both. We need that fuel to survive." She didn't even glance at him. Desperate, Jack lunged forward and grabbed her shoulder. What happened next? He would never forget Dot in the blink of an eye. She stood and spun around, grabbing his wrist. Her touch burned, hot and cold at the same time, and she shoved him. Backward with such force, he flew across the room and crashed into the wall. Jack gasped, pain shooting through his back. She walked toward him slowly now, her feet making no sound on the metal floor. The glow around her seemed to grow brighter with each step. Jack tried to stand, but his legs shook under him. Dot, when she was only a few feet away, she crouched down so her face was level with his. "You saw nothing," she said again, her voice low but dangerous. I saw everything," Jack muttered, staring into her star eyes. For the first time, her expression changed. Something flickered across her face. Surprise? Curiosity? She reached out and pressed one glowing finger to his chest. Jack felt his heartbeat speed up under her touch. "You're not like the others," she whispered. Jack frowned. "What others?" Asterisk, she pulled her hand back and stood up. She turned away from him and started pacing the room, her movements smooth and strange, almost like she was gliding. "They never speak," she said softly, almost to herself. "They scream, they run, they die, but you speak." Jack forced himself to his feet. "What are you talking about? Who are you? What do you want?" She stopped and turned toward him again. "I want to live," she said simply. The way she said it, full of quiet fury, like a blade hidden in silk, made Jack's skin crawl. "You can't live here?" he said. "If you take all the fuel, the station shuts down. We'll both die." She stared at him for a long time. Then she raised her hand and snapped her fingers. In an instant, the room changed. The lights flickered and died, plunging everything into darkness. Then the walls began to glow faintly, covered in strange alien symbols Jack had never seen before. He spun around, heart pounding, trying to make sense of it. The woman stood in the center of the room now, her glow even brighter, her shadow stretching out in impossible directions. "You think this is your station?" she said. Her voice was louder now, echoing off the walls. "You think you own this place? No, this place owns you." Jack shook his head, backing away. "You're crazy. This is human space. This is human space," she repeated, almost laughing. "You humans. So small, so fragile. You build cages and call them empires. You light candles and call them stars." She stepped closer, and Jack froze as her shadow passed over him. "But you don't see the cracks?" she whispered. "You don't see what waits in the dark." Jack's hands clenched into fists. "Then show me," he said through gritted teeth. The woman stopped. She tilted her head again, as though surprised by his answer. Then, for the first time, she smiled. A sharp, unsettling smile that made Jack's stomach drop. "You want to see?" she asked. Jack nodded, though his legs trembled. "Yes, show me." She extended her hand to him, glowing and strange. Jack hesitated for a moment, then took it. The moment their hands touched, the world around him dissolved. The G. Fuel room vanished. The station vanished. Jack felt himself falling through empty space, stars whipping past him. Strange shapes moved in the dark, vast and terrible, creatures with wings of fire and eyes like black holes. He heard whispers in his mind, voices he didn't understand. "You are not ready," the woman's voice said inside his head. He gasped and stumbled, and suddenly he was back in the fuel room. Lying on the floor, he looked up, panting. The woman stood over him, her expression unreadable. "You saw," she said softly. Jack sat up slowly, still shaking. "What? What was that?" She crouched down, her glowing hand reaching toward his face, but stopping just short. "Just a crack," she whispered. "A crack in your little cage." Then she stood, turning back to the pipe. "You saw nothing," she said again, almost gently this time. But Jack shook his head, still staring at her. "No," he said firmly. "I saw everything, and I'm not going to let you kill this station." The woman paused. Then she looked back at him, her star eyes narrowing. But this time there was something else in them, something like respect. The Threth alien woman stood by the fuel pipe, her strange glow casting long, sharp shadows on the walls. Jack stayed where he was, his back against the cold metal, his hands shaking slightly, though whether from fear or anger, he didn't know anymore. He had seen something tonight he wasn't supposed to see. And now he couldn't unsee it. The alien woman crouched down again, her glowing fingers brushing the fuel pipe. The metal hissed and groaned under her touch. Jack's eyes darted to the gauge on the wall. The fuel level was already below 30%. The alarms kept screaming in the distance, but now their sound felt far away, drowned out by the thundering of his own heartbeat. Jack forced himself to stand. "Stop," he said. His voice was low, but steady. The woman's starry eyes lifted to his. She didn't speak. She just watched him, her expression calm, too calm. "If you keep drinking the fuel, the station will die," Jack continued. "I'll die. And you? I don't know what you are, but you'll be trapped here with me." The alien tilted her head, almost like she was considering his words. Then she stood, and the light around her flared brighter. "I already am," she whispered. Jack blinked. "What do you mean?" She didn't answer. Instead, she moved closer to him, her feet silent on the floor. Her presence was heavy now, like a storm building in the air. Jack instinctively stepped back, but something behind him stopped him. He turned his head, confused, and froze. The door. It was sealed shut. When had that happened? He moved toward it, trying to press the release panel, but nothing happened. The panel was dark, dead. "What did you do?" Jack demanded, spinning around to face her. "I did nothing," she said softly. "It's them." Jack stared at her. "Them? Who's them?" She didn't answer. Instead, she raised her hand, and the walls began to shimmer. Jack watched in disbelief as faint, ghostly shapes appeared, moving, crawling, writhing just beneath the surface of the metal. They looked like shadows with claws and teeth, but no faces. Jack's breath caught in his throat. What is that?" The woman's star eyes flickered. "The others," she murmured. "The ones who left me here. The ones who will come. Back when the fuel runs out." Jack shook his head, backing away. "You're lying. Nothing lives here. This station is in dead space. No life for 100 light years." "Dead space," she repeated, almost mocking him. "You think space is dead because you can't see what lives in it." She stepped closer again. "You should be afraid of the dark," she whispered. Jack swallowed hard. Then the room suddenly tilted, the floor vibrating beneath his feet. The lights overhead flickered wildly, and the alarms rose to a deafening pitch. From somewhere in the walls, Jack heard scratching. Faint at first, then louder. Claws. Hundreds of claws. He stared in horror at the walls as the ghostly shapes began to press outward, their hands and fingers straining against the metal as though they were trying to break through. What's happening? He demanded. The alien woman finally turned to him, her expression still calm, but her eyes betrayed something darker now. The fuel keeps them asleep, she said. If it runs out, they wake. Jack's stomach turned cold. So, you're keeping them asleep? She shook her head. No, she said quietly. I feed so I don't wake them. Jack stared at her, realizing the horrible truth. She was drinking the fuel to stay alive. If she died, the others, the ones inside the walls, would awaken. His knees felt weak. So if I stop you, he said slowly. You kill us all, she finished. The scratching grew louder. One of the walls dented inward, just slightly, but enough to make Jack jump. He spun around, looking for a way out, but the door remained sealed. What do they want? Jack whispered. The woman's starry eyes narrowed. To feed, she said simply. The dent in the wall deepened. Jack could see a crack forming now, thin but growing wider. From inside, a faint light shone, sickly and cold. He turned back to her, his fists clenched. There has to be another way, he said. The woman only stared at him. Then find it, she said, her voice sharp now. Because I can't stop, and you can't run. Jack's mind raced. He looked at the gauges. Barely 25% fuel left. At this rate, they'd both be dead before sunrise. And then the others would come. He swallowed hard and straightened his back. Fine, he said, forcing his voice to stay. Steady. We'll find another way. But you're going to help me. The woman raised an eyebrow. Help you? She asked, almost amused. Yes, Jack snapped. You want to live? So do I. So unless you want those things to wake up and tear us both apart, you're going to do what I say, understood? For a long moment, the woman said nothing. Then she smiled. Not kindly, but not cruelly either. You're braver than the last one, she murmured. Jack frowned. Last one? But she didn't answer. She only extended her glowing hand to him. Deal, she said softly. Jack stared at her hand. He didn't want to take it. Every part of him screamed not to. But he knew he didn't have a choice. Slowly, he reached out and clasped her hand. The instant their skin touched, the scratching in the walls stopped. The air grew still, but heavier, like the calm before a storm. The woman leaned close and whispered in his ear. They're listening now, she said. Be careful what you promise. Jack felt a chill run down his spine, but he didn't let go. The Chase Jack's hand was still locked in hers. Her strange, cold glow seeped into his skin, making his fingers numb. She stared at him with her starry eyes, her face unreadable. They are awake now, she whispered. You took my hand. They know you. Jack pulled his hand away and stepped back. Then we have to stop them, he said quickly. But his voice cracked slightly, because deep down he could already hear it, the sound of the walls breathing. A low, hollow sound, as though the metal was alive and watching. And then the scratching came again, louder, closer, sharper. The alien woman tilted her head toward the wall. Too late, she murmured. They have your scent. And then the wall cracked open. Just a thin line at first, but it widened fast, like splitting ice. Through the crack, Jack glimpsed movement, long black fingers sliding through. The gap, Eyes like embers glared at him from the dark dot. Jack's single quotes as stomach dropped. His instincts screamed, "Run! Now! Don't just stand there!" He yelled at the woman, but she was already moving. Fast, so fast her form blurred. She slipped through the door, which somehow unsealed as soon as she touched it, and vanished into the corridor. Jack didn't wait. He grabbed his toolkit and ran after her. The lights in the hallway flickered wildly as he ran, the air growing colder with each step. Behind him, something heavy slammed into the fuel room door, making it bulge outward. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. The sound, the scraping, the breathing was enough. They were coming. Ahead of him, he caught a glimpse of her, just her shadow, sliding into the ventilation shafts above. She moved like liquid, climbing into the metal ducts without a sound. Jack skidded to a stop, staring up at her. "Wait!" He shouted. "Where are you going?" But she didn't answer. Her glowing eyes stared down at him for a brief second. Then she disappeared into the vents. The walls around Jack groaned. The floor beneath him began to shake. He knew he had no choice. He had to follow her. He threw his toolkit into the shaft and pulled himself up, just as the wall behind him cracked wide open. A hand shot through the hole, long, black, with too many fingers, and slammed into the floor where he'd been standing a second ago. Jack scrambled into the shaft. Panting, the metal was freezing cold, and the smell of fuel and dust filled his nose. Ahead of him, faint glowing footprints marked her path. He crawled forward, the sound of claws scraping the ducts behind him growing louder. After what felt like hours, he reached a fork in the ducts. One path sloped downward, dark and quiet. Other glowed faintly, and he could just make out her silhouette crawling ahead of him. "Stop!" he called out. "You can't just leave me here." She froze. Then she slowly turned her head, her glowing eyes piercing the dark. "You're slower than I thought," she said softly. "Hurry." She continued forward, faster now. Jack cursed under his breath and followed. The vent opened into a larger chamber, a maintenance bay he'd never seen before. Strange alien symbols covered the walls here, pulsing faintly with light. The woman dropped down from the vent and landed silently on the floor. Jack followed and fell awkwardly beside her. "Where are we?" he asked, looking around. "A place they don't know," she replied, walking to the far wall. She pressed her glowing hand against it, and a hidden panel slid open, revealing another tunnel. But this one was different. The air was warmer here, and a faint hum filled the space, like a heartbeat. Jack hesitated. "What is this place?" The woman glanced at him. "My nest," she said simply. Then she slipped into the tunnel. Jack followed, though every part of him screamed to stop. The tunnel twisted and turned, deeper and deeper, until they finally reached a large cavern-like chamber at the station's very core. In the center of the room was a massive crystal, glowing blue and white. It floated a few feet off the floor, humming softly. Thick veins of energy stretched out from it into the walls. The woman stood next to it, one hand resting on the crystal. She looked smaller now, almost tired. "What is this?" Jack asked, breathlessly. She didn't look at him. "The heart," she murmured. "My cage." Jack stepped closer. "You're trapped here?" Her shoulders stiffened. "Yes." Behind them, the sound of claws scraping metal echoed through the tunnels again. Jack spun around, his heart pounding. The creatures were close. Too close. "How do we stop them?" he demanded. The woman finally looked at him, her starry eyes glowing brighter. "You don't stop them," she said quietly. "You outrun them." Jack stared at her, stunned. "That's your plan? Run?" Her lips curved into a sharp smile. "That's your plan now, too?" And before he could reply, she reached out, grabbed his arm, and pulled him into another narrow tunnel hidden behind the crystal. The sound of the creature's claws grew deafening now. Black shapes began to slither into the chamber they just left. The crystal behind them flashed and pulsed, and the tunnel walls shook. Jack stumbled along after her as she led him through the twisting passageways of the station's hidden belly. Sometimes she moved ahead of him, almost vanishing in the dark. Sometimes she slowed down just enough for him to catch up. But all the while, Jack could feel them, behind, above, below, hunting him. Their whispers were everywhere now. Soft and cold. Come back. Stay. Hours, hours. He gritted his teeth and kept running. Finally, the tunnel opened into a small chamber with a hatch in the floor. The woman knelt beside it and pressed her glowing hand against it. With a loud hiss, the hatch unlocked. She looked at him over her shoulder. "You want to live?" she asked. Jack nodded, his chest heaving. She smirked faintly. "Then jump." And before he could ask what was below, she pushed him through. Jack fell. The last thing he saw was her starry face peering down at him, her voice echoing through the dark. "If you stop moving, they'll find you." Then the hatch slammed shut. Jack landed hard, rolling onto a cold, strange floor. He lay there for a moment, panting, listening. Above him, silence, but all around him now, in this new place, a faint hum and distant, unfamiliar whispers. He was somewhere else. But the chase wasn't over. Not yet. Asterisk. The truth. Jack lay on the cold floor for a long moment, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The silence down here was heavy, but not empty. Faint hum filled the air, like a heartbeat buried deep in the walls. And whispers, so quiet, they almost sounded like his own thoughts. "You're not supposed to be here. You don't belong. You saw too much." He shook his head and forced himself to sit up. The room around him was dimly lit by strange, glowing lines carved into the walls. They formed shapes, symbols, like alien writing, but alive somehow. Shifting if he stared too long. Jack stood slowly, his legs still weak from the fall. The hatch above him was gone, sealed shut, no way back. He took a deep breath. "Fine," he muttered to himself. "Then I go forward." He picked a tunnel, the one that seemed to hum the loudest, and walked into it. The air grew warmer as he moved. The walls pulsed faintly, and the floor felt softer now, like walking on old bones. The whispers grew louder. "You are not ready. You are not worthy. You will break." Jack clenched his fists and kept walking. At the end of the tunnel, he entered a vast chamber. He stopped dead in his tracks. In the center of the room floated a massive crystal, much larger than the one before, suspended by nothing. Veins of light stretched out from it, connecting to every wall, every surface. Beneath it stood the alien woman. She was different now. Her glow was brighter, her form sharper. Her long hair floated around her as though underwater, and her eyes, they were no longer just stars. They were entire galaxies. She didn't turn when he stepped inside, but she spoke. Her voice was louder now, and colder. "You shouldn't have followed me." Jack swallowed hard, but didn't back away. "You said you wanted to live," he said. "You said we could stop them." She tilted her head slightly. "I did. And we will, but you need to understand something first." She finally turned to face him. Her expression was unreadable. "You think this is your station," she said. "You think you built it. You think you own it." Jack frowned. "We did build it, humans." "No," she cut him off. "You found it. A shell. A carcass. Floating." "In dead space?" Jack froze. "What?" She stepped closer, her glow surrounding him now. "This station is not yours. It never was. It's a cage for me. And for them." She pointed to the walls, and Jack saw, behind the glowing symbols, the faint shapes of the creatures. Their claws, their eyes, their endless hunger. You humans stumbled onto it, she continued. You patched it up, turned it into your station. But you never wondered why it was here, or why no one else came near it. Jack's mouth was dry. So, you've been here the whole time? Trapped? She smiled faintly, but it wasn't a kind smile. Yes, I was their guardian, their prisoner. I kept them asleep, and they kept me alive. Jack stared at her. So you're one of them? Her smile faded. I'm not like them, she said quietly. But I'm not like you either. She looked back at the crystal. This, she gestured to it, is the lock, the heart of the cage. As long as it beats, they cannot leave. Jack glanced at the crystal. It pulsed faintly, each beat sending a shiver through the floor. But, she continued, her voice lower now, it's breaking. Jack took a step closer. Breaking? Why? She finally looked at him again, and this time her eyes burned brighter. Because you humans took the fuel. You drained the veins. You didn't know. But every drop you burned was a drop from this heart. Jack's stomach turned cold. He shook his head. We didn't know. We thought. You never think, she said sharply. You just take. The whispers around them grew louder now. Almost screams. Jack backed away, but she followed him, her glowing hands curling into fists. Do you know how long I've been here? She asked, her voice trembling with anger. Do you know how many times I begged them to let me go? How many times they said no? She stopped and stared into his eyes. And now, she whispered, they are waking. Because of you. Jack swallowed hard. Then tell me what to do, he said finally. How do we fix it? She stared at him for a long moment. Then she closed her eyes. You can't, she said softly. You can only choose. He frowned. Choose what? She opened her eyes again, and for the first time, he saw something like sadness in them. Free me, she whispered. Or free yourself. Jack didn't move. If you free me, she continued, I leave this place. I burn it. I destroy the heart. They die. And I'm free. She stepped closer, her glow blazing now. But if you choose yourself, you repair the heart. You trap me here again, and you keep them asleep, but you stay forever. Jack's chest tightened. Why me? He asked. She smiled faintly. Because you're the first one who didn't run. Behind them, the walls cracked. A black claw burst through the surface. 100 eyes opened in the dark, staring at him. Time was running out. Jack stared at the crystal, then at her. You lied to me, he said quietly. She didn't deny it. You lied too, she replied. You said you came here to fix a leak, but really, you came here looking for something more, didn't you? Jack's breath caught in his throat. She extended her hand to him, glowing, waiting. Choose, she said softly. Jack looked at her hand, then at the crystal, then at the walls, where the creatures were almost free now. His heart pounded in his chest. He took a deep breath and reached out his hand. Jack's hand hovered in the air, inches from hers. Her glowing fingers didn't move, but her eyes, deep and full of galaxies, watched him closely. Waiting. Behind him, the walls groaned and split further. More black claws forced their way through, and the air filled with a sharp, metallic smell, like blood and burned metal. The whispers rose to a deafening roar now. They were coming. Jack swallowed hard and took a breath. And then he grabbed her hand. The moment their skin touched, light exploded around them. The floor vanished beneath his feet. The chamber dissolved into blinding white. He felt weightless, like falling and flying at the same time. Then, Silence. When Jack opened his eyes, they were standing in a different place, not the station anymore. Not anywhere he recognized. He stood on a vast black plain under a sky full of shattered moons and burning stars. The ground was smooth and cold, marked with the same alien symbols from the walls, but here they glowed like fire. The woman stood beside him, her glow softer now, her hair floating lazily in some invisible wind. She finally let go of his hand. "You chose," she said. Jack glanced around, heart still racing. "Where are we?" She tilted her head. "Between," she replied simply. "Between your world and theirs, where deals are made." Jack frowned. What kind of deal? She took a few slow steps forward. "A dangerous one," she said, "but the only one left." Jack followed her gaze and saw something ahead. Of them a figure, tall, thin, wrapped in a cloak of shadows. Its face was hidden. Its presence made the air feel heavy, as if the whole plane leaned toward it. The woman stood still and spoke without looking at Jack. "That is the keeper," she whispered. "He controls the heart. He decides who stays and who goes." Jack narrowed his eyes. "Then why do you need me?" She finally looked at him, her expression softer now. "Because the keeper doesn't hear me anymore," she admitted. "But he hears you." The figure began moving toward them now, its steps silent but echoing in Jack's mind. Every instinct screamed at him to run. But his feet didn't move. The keeper stopped in front of him. Jack swallowed hard and forced himself to speak. I need to fix this," he said. "Stop them from escaping. Save the station." The keeper's head tilted slightly. A voice, low and deep, like stone grinding, spoke in Jack's mind. "You opened the door. You broke the seal. You chose her. Now you pay." Jack glanced at the woman, who watched him quietly, her starry eyes. "Unreadable. What do you want me to do?" Jack asked the keeper. His own voice sounded small in the vast space. The keeper raised a long, thin hand, and in its palm appeared a small black crystal. It pulsed faintly, and inside, Jack could see tiny claws scratching at the surface. To seal the heart. "One must stay," the keeper said. "To free her, one must take her place." Jack stared at the crystal, then at the woman. "You knew this," he whispered. "You knew what it would cost." She didn't deny it. "Yes," she said softly. "But I gave you the choice." Jack clenched his fists. "So if I stay, they sleep, and you're free." She nodded. "And if I let you stay, they wake, and everything burns." She smiled faintly. "You learn fast." Jack turned back to the keeper. His thoughts raced. Stay here forever, trapped, keeping the creatures asleep, or set her free and doom everything. The keeper spoke again. "Choose, now." The ground beneath Jack's feet began to crack. Shadows leaked through, clawing at his ankles. Time was running out. He looked at her one more time. "You lied to me," he said. "So did you," she replied, her voice calm, but her eyes soft now. "You said you just came to fix a leak." Jack almost laughed, bitter and hollow. "And you said you just wanted to live." She stepped closer, her glow brushing against his skin. "Maybe we both lied," she whispered, "but here we are." He turned back to the keeper and reached for the black crystal. But just before his fingers touched it, the woman's hand shot out and grabbed his wrist. He stared at her, confused. "You don't have to choose me," she said quietly. "There are other ways." Jack blinked. "What other ways?" She looked down, her expression darkening. "I can stay," she said. "Just long enough for you to escape." His stomach twisted. "You'd go back in?" She nodded. Jack shook his head. "Why would you do that?" She smiled faintly. though it didn't reach her eyes. Because you're the first one who asked. He stared at her for a long moment. At her glow, her starry eyes, her strange call. And something in him shifted. He turned back to the keeper. What if we both stayed? He asked. The keeper tilted its head, and for a moment, silence. Then it spoke. If you both stay, the heart grows stronger. The cage lasts longer, but you lose yourselves forever. Jack glanced at her. She watched him, silent, waiting. He took a deep breath. Or? He asked. The keeper raised the crystal higher. Or you choose her. She goes free. You stay. She burns the cage behind her. And everything else. Jack stared at the crystal, then at the woman. She gave him a faint, sad smile. Whatever you choose, she said softly. Choose fast. The shadows crept higher now, cold and sharp. Jack clenched his jaw. Fine, he said. Then let's make a deal. The keeper's eyes, if it had eyes, glowed faintly. The ground split open beneath them, and the air grew hot. The woman's glow brightened. She extended her hand. Jack took it. The keeper placed the crystal between their palms. So be it. The voice rumbled. Light burst around them, blinding and endless. Jack felt himself falling, and at the same time, burning alive. He heard her voice in his mind one last time. You're braver than I thought. Then everything went dark. When Jack woke up, he was lying on the station floor again, alone. The fuel room was quiet now. The alarms were silent. The walls no longer moved. The gauges showed full fuel. Everything looked normal, but when he touched his chest, he felt it, a faint hum under his skin, and somewhere in the distance, a soft whisper echoed in his mind. Thank you. The escape jack lay on the floor of the fuel room, staring at the ceiling. His breath came slow and heavy. His whole body hummed now, faint and steady, like the heart of the station was inside him. But it was quiet. The walls no longer scratched. The whispers were gone. The cracks had healed. He sat up slowly, looking around. The gauges glowed full. The fuel pipe was intact. It was as if nothing had happened, but she was gone. He could still feel her faintly, like the echo of a star just beyond sight. He closed his eyes, listening to the silence. Then, a faint voice in his mind. You chose well. But they are coming. Jack's eyes snapped open. The lights above flickered. Outside the window, space glowed faintly with movement. Something massive, something ancient, was approaching. He staggered to the control room, his boots clanging against the metal floor. The station's sensors screamed to life. An incoming signal flashed on the console, a language he couldn't read, yet somehow understood. Return her. Or burn. Jack stared out the window, and then he saw them. A fleet of ships, but not human. Ships. Their shapes were impossible, sharp and graceful at the same time, made of glowing crystal and black shadows. The lead ship was larger than the station itself. They had come for her. Jack swallowed hard. You waited too long, he muttered under his breath. She's gone. But the signal came again, louder this time. Return her, or we take her from you. He felt something shift in his chest, the faint hum growing stronger, almost painful now. They thought she was still inside him, and maybe she was. The station began to shake as the fleet moved closer. Lights across. The panels flickered red. The engines sputtered. The oxygen levels dropped slightly. They weren't waiting for him to answer. They were already tearing the station apart. Jack gritted his teeth. He slammed a button on the console, opening the comms channel. He spoke, his voice steady though his hands shook. She's not here anymore. You left her here to rot. You locked her in a cage. But I let her go. The signal paused. And then A low, guttural sound. Not words this time. A growl of anger that rattled the station's walls. Jack stood tall anyway, staring into the void. "You want her back?" he said quietly. "Then come and get me." The fleet moved closer. And Jack moved too. He ran to the escape bay, the smallest pod still intact. He jumped inside and strapped himself in, fingers flying across the controls. The station shook harder now, pieces of it breaking away as the ships closed in. "You're still in there," he whispered under his breath. Now would be a good time to help. For a moment, nothing. Just the roar of the engines and the hum in his chest. Then a faint glow over his hands. Her glow dot the pod powered up. Instantly, brighter and stronger than it ever had. The hull around him shimmered faintly, like it was being. Protected. Jack smiled faintly. "You're still with me." Outside, the largest ship opened like a flower, its interior full of impossible lights. A beam shot toward the station, but Jack's pod shot out at the same time, cutting through the darkness like a falling star. The beam missed him by inches, tearing the station in half instead. Fire and debris filled the void behind him. But Jack didn't look back. The pod streaked forward, faster than any human engine could ever go. He felt her presence inside the pod, faint but steady. "You chose well," her voice whispered faintly. In his mind, "You saved me. Now I save you." Another ship moved to block his path. Jack gripped the controls, but the pod moved on its own now, veering sharply, cutting between the massive ships, weaving through blasts of energy and clouds of crystal shrapnel. The fleet gave chase, but no matter how fast they moved, Jack's pod stayed ahead. And then the stars ahead of him shimmered. A tear opened in space itself, a doorway of light. The pod hurtled toward it, the glow inside growing stronger, hotter. Behind him, the alien fleet roared silently, their weapons firing wildly, but they couldn't touch him now. He glanced back one last time, seeing the station, or what was left of it, fading into darkness. Then he looked forward into the light. "Where does this go?" he murmured. Her voice answered, soft and certain. "Somewhere free." And with that, the pod shot into the tier. The fleet vanished behind them. The tier closed. Jack floated in silence now. The stars outside were strange, brighter, closer. The air inside the pod felt warm. He leaned back, exhaling slowly. "What happens now?" he asked softly. Her voice came one more time, faint but smiling somehow. Now, "You rest." I watched. Jack smiled faintly, closing his eyes as the pod drifted into the unknown. For the first time in what felt like forever, the whispers were gone, the claws were gone, the cage was gone. And somewhere far away, beyond the stars, a woman, with galaxies in her eyes, finally opened her own hands and let go. The end.